Hi, my name's Kevin Hicks. Welcome to the History Squad. Today we're on location in South Wales in the county of Monmouthshire, land of my fathers. In fact, we're right on the borders with England. England is just over yonder. We're at Skenfrith Castle. Now this was built between 1219 and 1232 by Hubert de Burgh. This is one of those castles that guarded the route from South Wales right the way through to Hereford. So this castle here, Skenfrith Castle, is an important piece in the jigsaw of the history of Wales. So let us explore. One of the problems you've got when you actually visit Skenfrith Castle is the undulations in the ground here. What happened 1954, the archaeologists came in, they did great excavations, they found the floor plan of the castle, which was brilliant. However, some of the spoil they took out of the rooms had been put in there in the medieval times, because this castle damp, as I've read, was prone to flooding because of the River Monnow, which actually flows just over here on the tree line. Now this was the gatehouse, and this was a great big gatehouse, drawbridge, portcullises, the whole battlements, you know, what you would think a medieval castle gatehouse looks like. And this great drawbridge went across the deep, wide moat, which has all been filled in. So you would come in through here, and it would be a courtyard. There were buildings on either side, and then just there. Look at that. The keep. This is a circular keep. It's in the main courtyard, just slightly to one end of the castle. But as you look around at these walls, in fact, there was a defensive tower just in the middle of that battlement there. You can see the remains of the window. Well, if you go above that, add another 6 foot, and that'll give you the height of the battlements. And they were capped with proper battlements, the hoardings, the whole business. This was your archetypal medieval castle. The layout of Skenfrith, it was rectangular in shape, and it was quite low lying, with the River Monnow to the east and the large moat surrounding it. It had a gatehouse to the north and 4 round towers, one in each corner, with a deep circular basement and 2 floors above with the arrow loops for defence. Domestic and accommodation ranges lined the inside curtain wall. Some were made of brick, some of timber, and of course that fabulous round keep in the centre. These were common in the early 13th century. You can read this castle actually. You look at these foundation stones all the way around. They're mirrored over there. This is the gatehouse. But if you come over here, you can see where local people have actually quarried the stone to build their houses. Don't forget, this was a ruin for a very, very long time. In fact, it had gone into decline from the 1600s. So all of this now is in somebody's house. But if you look close, you can see what I've been told was not so much cement, more of a concrete, but you can feel it. It is cement mixed with grit. Now this is the original stuff. It's all over the place. Maybe some repairs have been done, but I see this in castles all over the country. So what I've learned is we're actually on the site of the chapel. Now I know the chapel was often close to the quarters of the Lord of the Manor, the range I call them, and the remains of them are all along here. So let's have a look. You've got to use your imagination. Now if you remember, I told you about the castle flooding and the way some of the rooms had been filled with gravel so that they could then put a new floor on it, and then that's all been tipped out. So we're way high. If you look, this was the medieval ranges. There is a doorway just here. This was the medieval entrance. So we should be down there. Let me take a walk down, see what we can find. So remember, I'm actually going down to the level of the ground in the medieval times. You're standing on spoil, tons of it. When you come through here, it's just a doorway, it's just an archway. But actually pause for a moment. Look at the size of this. So the door hangs on this post. There would have been another, in fact, there it is. So even where we are, we're above ground level. Now, There's a mason mark here, but I think this is a replacement piece of stone. But as you come around, it reveals how important this doorway actually was. So you have a put-lug. Now this goes right the way back, the full width of the doorway, at least, with some to spare. So you slide that along. Here was the original reception. Bang, in it goes, locks the door shut. These enormous hinges here, wonderful, but just behind it is a mason's mark. And I love this. This is a piece of repair work. You know, we don't really know exactly what these rooms were. This is probably accommodation. Next door, the hall. But if you look, there's a window. So it's not quite an arrow slit, but it's narrow enough to be defended. Then you have these. Now this has been filled in at the top, and I know exactly what these are for. These are the wooden uprights, so that you have that lovely vaulted ceiling would have been going across here. A capital post, one that sticks right up to the apex of the roof. It would have looked lovely because it would have been open to the beams, because there's no fireplace in here. So there would have been braziers to heat the place. So the smoke will go up into the rafters and find its own way out. Now, interestingly with this place, it's a rectangular castle. There was a round tower in each corner, as well as the round keep. But I don't know if you've noticed, with a big chunk missing. An entire tower has actually been demolished, used for quarry, build somebody else's house. It's interesting because people say to me, well, that is so sad, why didn't they leave it alone? People have to live, and this literally became a quarry, like so many other castles. This isn't a result of the Civil War, this is people getting on with their lives. Right, we're just going down into what I think was the Great Hall. High status doorway there, so it's a big clue. Let's go and have a look. Oh, by the way, I think I've discovered where some of the stone from the castle actually went. It's been re-employed. That's not so bad. So, once again, massive door. There are no hinges here and no put-lugs, so I've got to assume it's all been filled in over the centuries. But the remains of what I think is a fireplace here. Now, I thought this was a fireplace. You know, when you come into these places, there's always an anomaly, something that doesn't quite make sense. You come into the hall, there's a fireplace on your left. Mind you, I don't like the fireplace just being there. Do you know what I mean? A fireplace right next to the door, it just doesn't add up. In fact, it's thought that this was originally a door, but what happened was they began to build it, but changed their minds, and partway through they built a smaller doorway just to the right of it instead. Now you can see there are some wooden put-lugs at the far end of the hallway there. So these put-lugs, that tells me there was some wooden structure there. Was that part of the canopy or the raised platform, the dais where the noble lord sat? Now that makes sense to me, because here there has to have been a fireplace. Come and have a look at this. First of all, they've exposed these finials here, finely carved. Look at the shape of the stonework going down. Another finial this side, finely carved. So this fireplace has been filled in. But if you look behind, you can actually see the slope where the chimney used to draw the smoke up and out of the room, unlike the central brazier that may have been next door. So we're still in the hall, and there's an intriguing bit of evidence here. So if we went back to the medieval times, if this is the windowsill, then I would literally be looking out of a window like this, yeah? But as you can see, it's been filled in the old days and then remade. So I would have to be a little bit higher to look out of the window. So this shows you that because of the flooding, they did fill these rooms full of rubble and all of this shale kind of stuff that they then emptied out to have a look at the plans of the rooms. So originally we're further down, then later on we're further up. It's intriguing, isn't it? I love the detective work. So we're just leaving the hall, the Great Hall if you like, when I noticed this doorway it's got a put lug here and these really lovely shaped door reveals here. They're absolutely lovely, and you can see where there is an iron hinge just at the bottom, and then of course your put lug. So this is the smaller doorway that was built to lead either to a room next door or possibly up some stairs to an upper floor, maybe to a new great hall that doesn't flood. But it's all changed. We're going into the room next door. Let's have a see, because they've left it on a different level. So we're in the room next to the Great Hall over there, or the hall. But if you look, it's on a totally different level. So this is the conundrum. This is the what if. What if then, because of all of the flooding, they filled all of those rooms up to this height? And then you put in a nice kitchen hearth there for the fire. You have a drain over here, which points to it being a domestic kind of range. And as I suggested, a new great hall just across there. So on top of the original early medieval, they built up to avoid the flooding. We're going to leave all of these rooms now. We're going to go through this door. There's another interesting feature here. It's believed this is the remains of a tank, a reservoir for storing water. Because the water table was so high back then, there wasn't any need for a well, so they stored water in here. Brilliant, eh? We're going to go up to the corner and I'll show you something. Now we're at the southwest tower. This is the only tower you can actually look into. Two of the towers are missing. One of them's bricked up, and this one you can see. It reveals that there was, let's call it a basement, a cellar, or was it a dungeon? Is this where there was a wooden floor and they just lifted a trap door, and if you were a prisoner, in you went? And interestingly, there's no evidence in here of a stone staircase. So you have the ground floor, then you have the first floor, and then a second floor above, and then way up higher you have the battlements. But there's a little interesting thing. I know all of the arrow slits are gone, right? But there is a little drain just over yonder on the wall, and it reminds me of something. Is that a poop chute? Was there above us a garderobe, and the men right at the top there had access to a toilet? So was it a cesspit? Was it a cellar? Or was it a dungeon? This is what I love about these places. When they're so far removed from their original shapes, you've got to try and piece the puzzle back together yourself. Have some fun. Try and figure out, hey, what used to be here? We're going to go over to the tower now, this beautiful circular tower you can see. But before we go in, you'll notice what I'd say is on the first floor there, you have an arrow slit just below that grand window. And you also have a giant dripstone going all the way around. And then the building itself was skirted, it flared out. So if you're shooting any rocks at it and things like that, you've got that extra defense at the bottom. So let's go and have a look. So here we are, we're going to go into the keep, this lovely circular keep. We're going to go through that door, but that isn't the original door. That's the door up there. So you imagine you can't get in except through that door. You could have steps coming down, have a wooden platform in front of it, the whole lot made of wood. So in the time of a siege, if you have to retreat into the keep, you make sure you knock that down. They can't get in. And another thing about this keep, it's far taller than any of the walls around here. So if you're a crossbowman or even a longbowman, you've got a two-tier arc of shot. So men could be shooting you from the top of this keep right the way across, no problems at all. The problem you've got as an attacker is shooting back, because all of these would have had their hoardings, their wooden fighting balconies all the way around. You can't see the men inside here, but they can see you. Let's go in. So here we are in the middle of the circular keep. It's lovely. We have a nice example of an arrow loop here. But what I find interesting is the level of the rooms. If you look down, you can see there's a rim. I presume there was an enormous storeroom, or even broken up into different rooms. But there's something I've just noticed. As you go above, you can see the put lugs where the great beams went across for the room upstairs. But you can just see there a corbel, a carved stone piece that would have taken some form of arch that would have gone across to support the ceiling of the room upstairs. And then above it, right the way up there, you can see there is another one, a support, and you've got the line of the floor upstairs. And right up there is an enormous fireplace, which shows you how big the rooms were upstairs. Now on top of that, put another floor, put a roof, and we have it complete. Now there is something missing here. I don't know if you've spotted it yourselves, but I can't find a spiral staircase. I can't see the evidence of it. So there must have been wooden structures in here. Simply a wooden staircase, right? Gets you from one room to the other. For the soldiers, it may be nothing more than a ladder. But of course, for the gentlefolk, it would have been a staircase. So I've already shown you the tower in the west corner. That's the east corner. And as you can see, the tower has pretty much gone, but there's evidence that there was a range of rooms going all the way along here. I understand them to have been the kitchen, and they go all the way. There you have your tower that would have been at the east front of the castle. But there is evidence that tells you what some of these rooms would have been. There's a drain through there. And is this the remains of a bread oven I see? Let's go down and have a look. It's something you can always see when there's a domestic range, a kitchen range of some kind, is the drains that go through the walls. But this circular brickwork here, this is the bakery, this is the baker's oven. Very often they had the oven for the bread. On top of it, they would have had another one for the pies. There were so many different ways that these worked. And I've actually fired one up many years ago in Chepstow. We got the bread oven going and we baked a loaf of bread. What was interesting is you could only eat half of it because the other half was black. Apparently, I didn't turn the loaf enough. These actually worked. How wonderful. But there's another piece of evidence as to this being the domestic range. So I'm coming down to the original level of the castle. Here we go. I am in the castle ovens. A circular building, stone built, went all the way up. Then it had a funnel roof, a round roof. Smoke went out through the chimney at the top. Here they would roast their boar, their roasted boar, the deer, the massive piece of beef. Yeah, can you imagine it all on here? It'd be quite fantastic. These are the lovely things about this castle, but this particular one has an extra piece of magic which I love, and I'm going to show you that just before we leave, so follow me. This is the water gate. Let's explore. As you can see, I don't fit, so let's dig a bit of this out and let's go through the castle wall itself. There are put lugs. There would have been a mighty door here. But if I then stepped all those hundreds of years ago, I would drown because I'm now in the River Monnow. On this side of the castle here, it wasn't a moat. The river literally came up to the walls. You open the doors, there would maybe a little wooden jetty here because this is a way of getting goods to and from Monmouth. This river was deep enough to have been navigable. So you have to imagine, all of this would not be here. The river has receded, it's got shallower, it's over there. Well, I hope you enjoyed that tour of Skenfrith Castle. If you did, like, share and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel further, why not have a look at joining our Patreon community? The link is in the description. Now, before I go any further, As ever, I've written their names down. I'm going to give a shout out to some of my Patreon members. First of all, we have Dan DiCenso, Martin Hans, and Quothnor. That's quite a name, isn't it? Quothnor. So, hey guys, thanks a million, and I'll see you soon. Bye.